Hey team, Angus Strachan here, and welcome to the Film Slice Podcast. I'm here, as always, with my co-host, Kane Diggly Wiggly, Kane Dogs, and Bro Diggly Wiggly, Broadman.
What's up?
Still in isolation, boys. How is life at home?
Life at home
fantastic.
is fantastic. Thanks for interrupting me, Jordan. Jeez.
You're welcome. I actually went back to work today.
Oh, good.
Nice.
Good.
Yeah.
Nice.
How's work? Didn't pick up the Rona?
No, not today. No,
Good,
it was
good.
It was
There's
fine.
always tomorrow.
I was in a school of a class of 30 kids, and that was the whole school.
Excellent. Well, me and
Weird.
Broadman have both been stuck at home.
Yep.
And what better way to spend your time at home than binge watching TV series? Nice segue, Angus. Thanks, guys. This week, we are, in fact, reviewing Tiger King, Murder, Mayhem, and Madness. Murder, Mayhem, and Madness. The triple M. I don't know.
The Triple M radio station.
Yes, we are reviewing Tiger King. This has probably been the source of internet memes since the isolation started. I've seen so many memes about this show. And it's not a movie, but it's topical. It's new. So we figured we'd do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why not just jump into it and
So firstly,
find out whether you guys would recommend it or not.
Well, we only did the first 2 episodes.
Yeah, so this is like a first impressions sort of thing, I guess.
So yeah. So I guess because Angus, you've seen all of it, haven't you?
Yep. Yeah. I was going to kind of try and explain that while we were saying the watch or not bit.
Oh, well, I've done it for you. You're welcome. Anyway,
Yes, well done.
I don't know if I'd recommend this. This really isn't my type of show. I'm not a big documentary guy. And I'm very much not the type of person where it's like, oh, it's like a train wreck and you can't look away. I can very easily look away. I'm not at all worried about missing out on seeing the train wreck. So I wasn't all that sort of pulled in by the intrigue of it. But if you're the type of person that loves, like, those, not necessarily murder mystery stuff, but if you love those juicy documentaries that are just weird and bizarre, then this is the apex of that.
Cool. So is that a watch or not from you?
For me, it's a not.
Not watch.
No,
Super.
No, for me, it was
Broadman.
rubbish and trashy.
The
Watch or not?
first 2 episodes really interesting. So I'd give it a watch. I'd give it a wait for streaming service. Yeah, it was interesting enough that I will probably watch some more, if that makes sense.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So I got sucked in by the memery of it all, and I got sucked in by by not wanting to miss out on what's hot and what's not at the moment. So I, in fact, actually watched the whole series in one day before we even decided to review it.
Yeah.
I gave up one whole day to watch this, and look, it's I'm gonna say it's a watch. As with kind of most things, I guess we're gonna come up against in the next few months. It's a super low threshold. Like, you don't have to be spending money if you already have Netflix to watch this.
It's a low bar to make it into a watch at the moment because we're all bored.
It is an extremely low bar. It's interesting. I for one love a good documentary. I'm a documentary fiend, and I really enjoyed the way that this one was shot and everything. So I'm going to say that it's a watch.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice one.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah,
Cool.
look, as I said,
I guess
if
we
it's
should.
up your alley, then it's up your alley.
Yeah. I guess we should kind of explain for people that haven't watched it yet or have only watched the 2 episodes. There is a lot in this, and there's not really quite a single through line for the story. So I'll read you the synopsis that we got on IMDb. It says,
IMDb.
A rivalry between big cat eccentrics take a dark turn when Joe Exotic, a controversial animal park boss, is caught in murder for hire plot. Now, I don't know about you, but how is it that people have not come up with this concept already? Like, it's just, such a generic thing, you know, an exotic.
You think it'd be obvious,
eccentric, stuck in a murder for hire plot. Like it's pretty basic. I am of course lying. This is so weird watching it, and every episode you're just kind of left with a bit of a what the fuck kind of a face, and you're like, I guess I better watch the next episode to find out what happens, and then something new happens. Interesting to see what you guys think. It's
very clever in the way they choose to unveil their information, because from what I've gathered, just from what I've heard, and for the first episodes I've seen, the thing that I heard was there's no character that isn't kind of twisted or crazy in one way, but the way the first two episodes sort of show that is, in the first episode you're introduced to our main character, what's his name, Joe Exotic. And then you're introduced to another character who is also like an exotic animal collector. And in the first episode, you're like, oh, the other guy seems a bit more down to earth. And then the second episode, you're like, oh no, he's worse. And he's also crazy.
He runs a cult.
And it's sort of the concept that's like, it's one of those things where every time you meet a new character, you're like, maybe this is the sane one. And I'm getting the idea that they're not. And that's really... It's really clever the way that the show unfolds, in that's how they've chosen to unveil the information so that you get that effect.
Yeah, definitely. Clever. There's 100%. There's not really many redeeming qualities in most of the characters. I will say, just before we go into it, if you haven't watched it, it's very akin to Making a Murderer. If you've watched that docuseries on Netflix, it's that kind of thing where they bring in information kind of episode by episode, and like they kind of sway you either way. So you have an idea of one side of the story, then you have the idea of another side of the story, and they kind of bring in the information, and they keep you guessing all the way up until the end, which obviously works because like I know Making a Murderer has done really well in the, you know, it's got quite a large following online. Sweet. Before we get into spoilers, anyone got a cinema dick they want to point out?
No cinema dick for me.
I mean, it was just me and my. I mean, it was just never mind.
It was just Brody by himself, and he in fact his own cinema dick.
I'm gonna go out and say Cinema Saint was my housemate. She also sat through it the whole day with me, so it was a real team effort there. We both ran the marathon, and
my girlfriend
good effort.
My girlfriend just reminded me we did have a cinema dick, which was indeed my dad. So we're all living under the one roof at the moment, which is, you know, as you can imagine,
not Poiter.
Poiter. Yeah, Poiter. And you can find him on Facebook. And he went for a walk. So we're like, this is a great time. Yeah, it's fine. Like, he needs some friends. So he went for a walk, and we're like, this is a good time to watch it. And he came back, and we were watching it. And we went to turn it off to be like, all right, we'll go watch it in another room now so that we don't, like, you know, get in Dad's way if he wants to watch something and whatnot. And he was like, no, stay there. I won't be in your way. I'm going outside anyway. And we're like, okay. So we decided to sit down and keep watching. And then went and turned the kettle on, made himself a cup of coffee, and came and sat down and then started talking to us. So we had to turn it off and go to a different room. So, Cinema Dick, my dad.
I was for sure going to think that he would come in like near the end of the second episode and be like, right, so who's this guy? And then you'd have to explain what kind of screwed up TV show this actually is.
And then he would have said, oh, sounds like a bit of a dickhead.
He's a guy that owns a big... Yeah, sounds like a bit of a dick, George. Just like you. Oh.
Got him. All right, let's head into spoilers.
Cool sound effect, Angus.
All right, we are in the spoiler section where we dissect and divulge everything about the TV series. You've been warned. So I'm going to say we are technically only reviewing the first 2 episodes, but I will in fact talk about the whole series as a whole, as I think it kind of rounds out the discussion quite nicely. So if you haven't watched all of it, definitely watch it, and that is including the extra episode that came out a lot later. I've got a bit to say on that as well. You've been warned, and now it is time for
what's in the
mail. That's right, what's in the mailbox, boys? How are your mailboxes looking? Nice and tidy, keeping them clean over these few weeks?
Well,
I've
I've
manscaped
actually,
my mailbox.
for fuck's
So, yeah.
sake, Jordan, interrupting me. Oh no,
Yeah, cool.
please, by all means, Jordan, continue.
Well, I went back to the old ways of Photoshop. I used to Photoshop our faces, if people remember, onto posters and things. And I went back to doing that. So I've made 3 film slice pictures using Tiger King posters and put them up. And the only comment we got on Facebook was, I think, Ethan Dean, who said, "Please do Tiger King," which I thought was interesting, having that I'd already done the Photoshops. Because that insinuates that he thought I was just doing them for shits and gigs.
Amazing.
That's just how Jordan spends his free time in this
That's
isolation.
just what I do. And he was like,
photoshopping my face, Angus's face, Brody's face. Oh, look at that poster. That's nice. That's gold on the wall.
And then I'll put it on the Film Slice account for no reason.
Amazing.
That's all we got on Facebook.
Very good. Awesome. Thanks, Ethan Dean. Long time listener, Ethan Dean. Special shout out. Sweet. I did check it up on Instagram. I did check it up on Instagram as well, at Film Slice Pod. We've got from none other than Radio Mike. He says, I thought it was a silhouette of Captain Falcon. Of course, referring to my amazing picture that I silhouette out. And you get to guess what it is. Yeah, apparently it looks like Captain Falcon. So, yeah, cue the Smash Bros. Theme.
Falcon Punch!
And then we've also got from Dirty Dan's. He says, I don't know if I can financially recover from this. Which is, of course, one of the memes from when one of Joe Exotic's employees gets their arm torn off and has to go from has to go to hospital and amputate it. And of course, Joe is worried that he's not going to financially recover from this because he had to refund the tickets for the day. Just a bit of an insight into what kind of characters we're dealing with in the Tiger King murder mayhem.
It was also
madness.
the bad press and everything like that made him say that.
Yes, yeah,
it was just like, yeah. That was probably, I've got to say, one of the saddest moments of this show was seeing her choosing to amputate her arm instead of going through reconstructive surgery. And I was just like, that's just a problem with like the American like medical system not having like healthcare and all that sort of shit. Because it would have cost her like millions of dollars, and she would have gotten millions of dollars in debt. And it's just like, oh.
Yeah, for sure. It's it does kind of open it up, I guess, into like a few aspects as an Australian watching it as well, I guess, because I'm not sure about the laws in Australia, but I don't think you're allowed to own tigers.
No.
Like I don't think that's a thing. Cane dogs. Just don't mention anything. You'll be right.
Australia's pretty strict on all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and like they talk about guns, and there's obviously some instances where guns are quite a predominant part of the series later on, which I can mention later if you guys don't want it spoiled. I should actually say, are you guys keen on watching more of it? Should I try and stop myself from spoiling too much?
I'll probably watch more of it, but I don't really care if you spoil it for me. Do you know what I mean?
I was going to say, I think if I get around to it, it'll be the sort of thing where it's like I put it on whilst I'm doing something else, so I'm not too fussed.
This isn't like a Breaking Bad or
cool.
like a Game of Thrones or whatever, where I care about the characters or whatever. It's just like no.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, sweet. All right, let's get into it. Let's aim around the first 2 episodes, or just whatever you guys have watched so far. The most positive thing, your favorite thing about this docuseries. Broadband,
would you like to go first?
Do you want to kick us off?
Okay, yeah. So, sorry, I was just expecting Jordan to interrupt me, so I didn't say anything. I really like the characters that they've got. Basically, they've got like 3 people that are all in charge of their own big cat sanctuary, or like sanctuary in quotation marks, private zoos, and they're just slowly revealing more and more information about each of them, and they're just like, oh, you thought this person was crazy? Oh, here's what this person's doing. Oh, they they're just as weird, and they're just as like taking advantage of these animals as this other person. Oh, and there's this guy, and this guy, and this guy. Oh, and here's one of the biggest drug dealers in the world, and they're in it as well. And it's just like, I love that sort of reveal of information where they're just like, oh, how about this? And I love every time we get to see the director or the producer of the show, and it's just like, okay, yeah, sure thing. And he's just like, he has to have like a straight face when he's encountering something super weird. Oh, I just really love the reveal of information, and I guess the pacing that they've implemented in the show.
Yeah, for sure. Just on that, there's one part that I really like. I think it's in the first episode or the second episode where they come in and they introduce Doc Antle, who's obviously the third introduction of the third kind of big cat empire that they've got running in America. And I really love the fact that they kept in, Brode, as you were saying, it's like a look behind the curtain almost, where they've got the producer kind of talking and interacting. And Doc Antle goes like, right, so here's my house. Do you guys want to... You guys head out now. I'll go around the back, and then you guys knock on the door, and I'll, do like a, hey, here's my crib kind of thing. All right, let's do that. And then there's just that snide remark from the producer going, oh, I guess Doc knows how to direct better than both of us. So
better than we do.
Cool, I guess we'll do that. I just love...
That's great.
I love that. Yeah, that insight that kind of comes from, I guess, revealing the camera people as well. And like, there's a lot of that, because in this docu-series, there's the people filming the docu-series, and then you've got Joe Exotic's TV thing that he's doing on the internet. And then you've also got in the mix this reality TV that was being shot at the same time. So really there's three crews all following along this weird ass story. I totally agree, Brad. Cane Dogs, what was your favorite thing?
Look, that was gonna be mine, but I guess the other one is the footage that you see, like the things that you see. Just again, this is coming from someone that doesn't watch a lot of documentaries and things like that, and I'm certainly not like a David Attenborough kind of guy, but being someone that's mainly only used to seeing like, any kind of footage, anything like this, mainly being like CGI kind of crap, and I'm talking like, the big cats or guns or anything like that, this show just makes everything seem so spectacular, being that it's all like kind of like it's hyper reality, but it's real life. It's just like the footage of everything is interesting. Like one of the things that's always sort of put me off of documentaries is just how boring all of the actual visuals are, because it's always just like usually you're talking maybe a murder mystery or something like that, but it's always just, this is a picture of the person and then here's a shit reenactment. Whereas this is like, here's a crazy person with a gun shooting a dummy in a lake, and then like smash cut, here's a tiger biting someone's arm, and it's like, oh shit. So the fact that this is visually interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Like I think it's a mixture of just right place, right time, right? Because so the stuff that they're
it makes you be like, what didn't they film? Like when you watch it, it's like, imagine the shit where it's like, oh, imagine if we got that on camera. Like, what haven't we seen? Like what's the stuff where the camera guys are like, oh, imagine if that was on the show. But it just, for me, it's one of the few documentaries where I haven't watched 13 minutes of it and gone, it might as well be a podcast. Because usually it's just, some black and white images of someone standing next to, like, their height measurements, and then someone talking over it. I'm always like, it might as well be a podcast. But this genuinely is visually very entertaining.
On top of that, I reckon that the quality of footage that they're using, I was actually really surprised by. Because, like, I forget that it's, like, 2020, and, you go back 10 years and it's 2010, and we still have HD cameras. I forget about that all the time. So, like, even though a lot of this footage was from, like, a bit more, like, a while ago, they still have really recent, high-quality cameras, and it looks really good. And it's just like, oh, man, I forgot. Like, I wasn't expecting this. I was expecting, like, kind of shitty, fuzzy footage.
Like
and it's just, like...
footage.
Yeah. But it's just like, nope. All of this stuff shot on like really nice cameras. They had they got some like good slow-mo in there of the big cats and stuff like that, and it's just like, this is actually like put together really well.
Yeah, it's visually very impressive.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I specifically remember the scene where they're talking about the food that they're feeding to the animals, and they throw all of like the big chunks of meat in to Joe Exotic's animals, and the cats just run in and grab it and stuff like that. And there's like bits in slow motion of the cats running, and there's like bits where it's like even like really fast. Yeah, to the great music. I really enjoyed that moment from like a visual standpoint. It was just like well done.
Yeah, cinematography wise, it's quite stunning, and I guess
surprisingly so.
Surprisingly, yeah. And I guess like that's the joy of having so many film crews there, is that there's not really a lack of footage for when shit does go down.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's got something.
Yeah, definitely. I guess my most positive thing about this is it's reignited my love of documentaries. I haven't actually watched a documentary in quite a long time, mostly because I guess we spend a lot of time watching movies in the cinemas and stuff, and documentaries don't really get that kind of limelight. So this couldn't have come out at a
one
better
that
time.
Definitely does. Sorry to interrupt, Angus.
No,
is
go for it.
Free Solo that we saw last year.
Yeah,
that is a documentary that definitely does live up to like big picture standards. You know,
I saw that in IMAX and it was awesome.
Yeah, same. And I think other than that, the like Planet Earth videos, but like other than that, documentaries aren't usually kind of visually impressive anyway.
Yeah, they're kind of few and far between, I guess, and I guess that comes from like society's standpoint of like you've got to have those big explosions and big CG fights and everything. It's kind of it steered the audience away from things in real life can be quite visually stunning as well and stuff like that. So I think this this documentary kind of came at a perfect time because no one's at the cinemas, and it's kind of it's just kind of gone to show how far developed the documentaries now are. I guess, which is awesome, so I think that was probably the biggest thing for me, was that it reignited my passion for documentaries and watching documentaries, and I think also just the fact that they don't really shy away from things. They show you the grittiness of it. That it's grotesque and kind of disgusting, and you feel sick watching it. But I think that's probably one of the things that documentaries have always done really well, is just kind of putting it bluntly and not sugarcoating it. Whereas in a drama, you might be able to shy away from the grotesque, or increase the grotesqueness of it for viewer for the audience you're looking for. But this was just kind of based down to reality. This is not a fun story. This is as you said, Cane Dog's right at the start, like it's an absolute train wreck. But I guess that's the art of the storyteller, isn't it? Is to kind of make it in an intriguing way that gets people to listen. And I mean, hopefully it sends out a good message. It absolutely has. I've bought 3 guns and 2 tigers. The last thing I'll mention about the good things, before we head into what we didn't like about it, is that it kind of ends with the moral of the story being like, the people that are looking after the tigers, they kind of forgot about the tigers. And by the end of the documentary, the tigers aren't even a part of it. It's all about this murder mystery kind of thing, and like who said what, and it's kind of, it brings it back to the humans. And then right at the end, it's like, but just don't forget, like, these tigers still are here, and like from an animal rights perspective, like they're not in the best environment all the time. So it's worth kind of just actually thinking about then. Sweet. I've talked way too much about this. Let's head on to our most negatives, things that we didn't like about the documentary. Broadman, you wanna start us off again?
No, Jordan's gonna.
Cool. Cane Dogs, what do you got?
Sure. I think the main reason I didn't like this was, as you said, Angus, in the positives, it makes you uncomfortable. And that's fine. Yeah. I don't mind, especially movies that are designed to do that, and this show is clearly designed to do the same thing. I don't mind that. But it being real life took away the fact that there was going to be offered levity for me. That, and I think I didn't like that by halfway through episode 2, I was starting to see myself go, oh, Joe Exotic's pretty normal, actually, by comparison. And I didn't like that either. I didn't like that I was, like, an episode in and already I'd, like, normalized to this climate of just, like, things like how they were talking or dressing or their actions, all of that. I didn't like it. I was already, like, justifying it out of comparison. But I think my main negative, like, it's not a negative of the show, it's just why I can't get behind it, is it's one of those things where it's like, here's something fucked up and it's gonna get worse, stay tuned. I'm not likely to be like, no, I have to know. I'm one of those people where I like switch off. So it's less of a review of the show, I guess, in a negative perspective, and more just why me and maybe some other people who share my perspective won't get behind it as much. That's really all I got. The show's, like, from what I saw, done expertly. It's one of the few documentaries that I thought deserves to be seen by everyone. It's just not my cup of tea.
Fair enough. B-Man, what you got?
I feel like I don't have, like, a specific negative, but because it's based, like, it's all, like, a true stuff, you know, it's hard to figure. It's like, you know, I can't think of anything narratively or anything like that, or like structurally, I guess. I'm just like disappointed that there's no, like, good person. You know what I mean? There's no good person.
Yeah. That's
I think
exactly,
the closest,
there's nothing to cheer you up.
The closest we've got to a good person is the person who used to live in the dock sanctuary, who got out and is just like, and she's just talking about her experiences there and sitting on a couch, and she's, like, very real. And it's great. And she's like happy to make fun of herself and stuff like that. And it's just like, I love this character. This character is amazing. And I'm talking about them like their characters, they're actual people. Yeah. I love this person. Like, this person's great. And she's just there and she's just like, yeah, so that's really weird. And she, like, pulls a weird face and stuff like that. And it's just like, this is a real person. And it's like, she was my favorite character. But, like, other than that, why, like, it's weird, like, not having a good person in there. It's just like, man, all these people are weird and kind of awful, and I don't really like. And they're all a bit too much.
Yeah. And the thing is, I don't want to watch episode 3 just in case it unfolds that she's, like, you know, a psycho herself. Like, that's the other thing. So anytime you get introduced to a character and they seem normal, it's like, I can't trust them. Like,
so the thing with that character,
information.
Thing with that character is that, you're right, bro. Like, she's very kind of redeeming, and like, she kind of brings it back down to reality, and kind of makes you think, like, like, thank God there are actually, like, real people in this. It does kind of ground it a bit. Unfortunately, which kind of comes into my negatives, they kind of steer away from her. Like, she doesn't really turn out to be, like, this really weird, evil person, like that, but they don't really seem to give her the rest of the limelight. They kind of get her opinion on that one thing that kind of really grounds it, and I guess exploits or explores kind of Doc Antle's sanctuary and kind of what's happening there, and makes him look super weird and culty. But then after that, in the rest of the documentary, she doesn't really get a lot of airtime, which I guess is the one thing that I didn't really like. Going into my most negatives is, as creating a documentary, there's this kind of default notion that whatever you say is true. And something that, like, I guess they kind of have to deal with by showing so much behind the scenes, like we were talking about earlier on in the podcast, is that they show their hands a bit, and sometimes it seems like the stuff that they're purposely putting on the video, like on the documentary, is like they've kind of specifically chosen that, or kind of specifically almost created that in order for a certain effect, and they're only interviewing certain people about certain ideas and, like, very controversial characters, whereas if you brought in, like, that I'm not sure, I forget what her name is, but the lady from Doc Antle who left, she was very grounding and everything, and obviously the producers of the documentary didn't really see her as much of a interesting point, and so it does kind of show that the producers in I guess from my perspective anyway, are kind of not the best light either, in that they're kind of just trying to get a story.
Worst. Yeah,
they're
choosing to show us the worst of everything.
Yeah, exactly, and they've got that character in there, like the producer of the reality TV show. What's his name? Rick Kirkman, who's a producer, and he kind of says, like, you know, that, yeah, he kind of, you know, pushed Joe to do certain stuff that would look good on TV, good for his reality TV show, all because of his retirement plan kind of thing. And like, not that he's a bad person, but that's just kind of the producer's job. And so it kind of shines a light on the producer of this documentary, going, well, okay, well, if he's prepared to do that, then what are you guys doing? And are you guys showing us the truth, or are you guys, you know, just kind of dramatizing it up as well?
And 100% they would be, to an extent. Like,
oh,
with
yeah,
every
sure.
crazy story, there's got to be the other side to that story that's potentially more normal, but it wouldn't make for as interesting a documentary, I suppose, and they'd know that. But if you're smart enough to work that out, then you feel somewhat manipulated.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. We've kind of run out of time. I will just kind of finish it off by talking about, so I'm not sure if you guys heard a lot about this, but the documentary was released a few weeks ago. People got, you know, all up in arms about it and loved it, and, you know, shared it all over the internet, and a lot of people have seen it. And so they decided to put a final episode up. So this is on Netflix, and it's kind of in the actual, you know, I guess the quotation marks season. It's episode 8 or 9 or whatever it is. But basically, I'm not sure if you guys have heard about this. Basically, all it is Joel McHale, who you guys will know from
Community, stuff like that.
Community as Jeff.
Yeah.
It's all it is him on his couch in his home, talking about, like, you know, being in quarantine and we've got nothing better to do. So I decided to approach Netflix, and I wanted to
have, like,
get
the Joel McHale,
you know, more of the
show,
story.
Right?
Say again.
He used to have, like, his own Joel McHale show on Netflix, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Like last year,
I'm not
he
sure.
had a show.
I'm not sure.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's just, but basically all it is like a Zoom chat or a FaceTime chat or whatever of him just talking to some of the other characters. But it's quite funny because he's just taking the piss out of all of them, and they're just
he's a stand-up comedian,
and, like, have a bit of fun. But yeah, it's quite an odd ending to the documentary. So I would definitely say watch the whole thing, and then if you want a bit of a laugh and, like, into the, I guess, the meme of the Tiger King, then watch the last episode.
I watched a bunch of stuff with the Community cast at, like, conventions and stuff like that, because they're all really funny comedians, and Joel is great. He's not the best comedian in the world, but something he does consistently is he never answers a question seriously. So there's all these fans, you know, asking him questions, and he just says some joke, and then they just move on. And I find it so funny that no matter what, any fan who has ever asked him a question at any convention or anything like that has just received a joke in response, and they've, like, never received a serious answer. I find that so funny.
He's the human embodiment of taking the piss.
Yeah. He's great.
It's a bit like Taika Waititi, and a lot of Taika Waititi interviews where they ask him a question, he gives a really sarcastic answer.
The great thing with Taika as well is because he's a Kiwi and he does a lot of stuff with Americans, they just don't get that he's, like, being sarcastic.
They're just taking
and they're
the
just
piss,
like, they're just, like, always, like, 3 steps behind him, and he's just, like, taking the piss, just making fun of himself and everyone else, and then just like, what? He's really good at that.
Good times. Well, I guess those were our closing statements on what we thought of the Tiger King. Taika Waititi is great, and Joel McHale is a piss take. Awesome. Thanks for tuning in, boys and girls, and bald-headed babies, everyone in between. Love your guts. Make sure you follow us on Facebook and Instagram and all of that jazz. Make sure you send Cane Dogs a message on Facebook. He loves it.
I'd love a message on Facebook.
Awesome. And next week we shall get it. Oh, actually, I did have something to say right at the end. I actually got a message from Radio Mike giving us a suggestion of what we should do in our podcast. You know how last week I asked for suggestions and we had someone talk about we had J-Bam, I think, talk about the clouds in the sky. Well, we've got Radio Mike
competition
saying, competition. He said, one thing I thought could be good is if you review classics or even do like a few weeks in a row of a film starring a certain actor. So he put in here, for instance, you could be like, all right, for a month we're doing Jack Black films and do School of Rock, Shallow Hal, Kung Fu Panda, Nacho Libre, you know, that kind of stuff.
I'd be adopting a tiger. That'd be it. I'd be crazy. I'm not against reviewing classics though. I'm planning on rewatching RoboCop tonight. That'd be a great film to deconstruct.
No, I feel like that's been done to death. But yeah, thanks Radio Mike. Discuss. You're a legend. And yeah, if you guys have any ideas on what we can do to entertain ourselves and you guys on the podcast next week, let us know. Hook us up on social medias, all that jazz. Sweet. That's it. Thanks, boys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Stay safe. All right. Bye.